Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at the new Dior holiday collection. We're also going to be taking a look at some new brushes from Rephr. This is the new fall brush and this is launching soon. It is a 3D shape. We'll talk about this as we go through some of the demos with the Dior. Let's go ahead and start off with the eyeshadow swatches. I picked up one of the two palettes. Now you can see the packaging for the eyeshadow palettes is going to be a reflective gold. So this is plastic. And there are two different eyeshadow palettes. I picked up this one here, which is the cooler tone. This is number 863, Soir de Bal. The other one is pinks and golds. It's called Golden Masquerade. So this is the one I picked up. Let's go ahead and swatch this. And our first shade, by the way, you can see this beautiful embossing, but you can see this better in the short that I have with the daylight swatches. So this is our first shade. This is going to be kind of like a warm pink. So you can see we do have a little bit of like an orangey vibe in there. There's pink glitter. The base itself is going to be pretty transparent. So it's a pretty sheer base there. So we kind of have this corally pink actual pigment and then lots of like more like fuchsia pink glitter. So that's going to be our first shade. And then the next shade here is going to be a light pink. You can see it's going to be a pale pink shade here. And we do have some shimmer in this as well. You can see this one actually gets a little bit of a brighter pink iridescence to it. But it's going to be a pale pink. The middle shade is going to be a rich metallic silver. Very smooth. I really like this formula. I would say these first two, formula-wise, they're both okay. But I think the silver, the actual silver shade, is a really, really nice formula. So, you know, okay versus really great. Then we have the purple shade. And this is what I really wanted from this palette here. You can see this is a really beautiful, deep purple, not quite eggplant, but you're kind of there. And you have a little bit of pink shimmer in here. It's not going to be super shimmery, but there is going to be a little bit of that in there. And then our last shade here is kind of like a mauvey brown shade here. So it's brown, but we do have a touch of mauve in there. And again, we do have a touch of, there's a touch of rose. So as you're looking at these swatches, you can see with this last shade here, we don't really see pink glitter, but when you kind of feather that out, you can see a little bit of a metallic pink in there. It's kind of in there. So these are the 5 shades in the Soir de Bal. Let's take a look at the eye swatches and talk a little bit more about this palette. But first, let me just give you a quick preview of some new brushes coming from Rephr. These are the Eyeshadow brushes. We'll talk more about these in a minute, but you're going to see these in the demo. So I just wanted to show off the shapes first. So this is the Eyeshadow 00. You can see we have a shader style brush, but we have some hair lengths that are going to be a little bit longer, you know, more of a stippling style, but it's softer than that. It's not as firm as a stippling brush. And then we also have the Eyeshadow 2, which looks like it might be just a small crease brush at first glance, but this actually has fibers that are going to be like very short all the way to a longer hair here. And the reason for that is you can actually use these on their side as well, which I'll show you in the demos. And then we have a bigger version with the Eyeshadow number 3. So we'll take a look at these again after the demos, but first let's move on to the eyeshadow swatches from Dior. The Soir de Bal eyeshadow palette is limited edition. It's made in France with 7 grams of product, and like all Dior eyeshadows, we have a 6-month shelf life. This retails for $71 US. According to Dior, this is the first time that they have housed an eyeshadow palette in a golden case, and this is to celebrate the season. The engraved royal motifs that are on the actual shadows were designed for Dior by artist Pietro Ruffo. And we've got, as I mentioned, 2 palettes. There's Golden Masquerade, which is described as a bright gold heart surrounded by glittery shades of peach and pink and a contrasting matte burgundy. And then the one that I have here is 863 Soir de Bal, a metallic silver heart enhanced by luminous shades of taupe, champagne, and pink. Worn alone or in combination with other shades, each Dior eyeshadow delivers long-wearing makeup in a creamy, comfortable powder texture. And there are 2 single-ended applicators that come with this palette as well. Overall, my thoughts on this palette, I think this is a nice palette. I have to say though, I did have slightly higher expectations for it. You know, it is plastic packaging, which I figured it probably would be, but it does feel a little bit more lightweight than I would prefer. And I actually think if they had gone with a brushed gold finish instead, that would, I just think it would have been a little bit more elegant. We wouldn't have so many fingerprints on it. So I feel like it's such a fingerprint magnet that it detracts a little bit from the look. As for the actual quality of the shadows, I think they are nice. They still are not as good as the older formula of the Dior eyeshadows. And actually the Plan de Prix palettes, some of those were slightly creamier as well. It kind of depended which shade you had there. The Champs-Élysées, that was a bit more of a glittery palette, and that one felt a little bit chunkier than the shimmery shades in here. We are going to take a look at that one and compare those pink shades. The first 2 shades at the top feel a little bit more on the powdery side. There's nothing wrong with that, but it is something you make sure you want to tap off your brush. That middle silver shade is super creamy and smooth. It is, you know, exactly what you want from a shimmery eyeshadow, in my opinion. I would have loved to have seen all 5 of these shades feel as smooth as that one. The purple and the taupe are a nice powder formula as well, but they do feel slightly creamier than the 2 pinks at the top. Overall, I think all 5 shadows perform well. I don't anticipate hard pan from any of these shades. And yeah, overall, I have to say I do really like it, but I do prefer the bottom half of the palette to the top half in terms of texture. Overall, I think this is a nice eyeshadow palette, but I wish they had replaced that first shade with something a little different. It doesn't truly fit in as well as I would like with the other 4 shades in the palette, which all tend to lean a little bit cooler. That first shade has more of that orange base, and because of that, it really skews a lot warmer than the other 4 shades in the palette. And I feel like if they had put something in there that was a little bit cooler in undertone, that would have fit in just a little bit better. So that's my personal preference on that, but overall it is a nice palette. Now, as you're looking at the demo for today's eye look, you can see the Rephr Koyo brushes. Now, the Shodo collection from Rephr is inspired by Japanese calligraphy, and that's where we get the shapes for these. So actually, before artisans started creating the makeup brushes in kimono Japan, they were most well known for their calligraphy brushes. They still make calligraphy brushes today and other brushes for artists and so forth. But one of the great things about calligraphy brushes is the way that they are used. So they actually utilize the brushes in a different way than you would for makeup. So with calligraphy, you want something with a precise tip so you can get that really fine point line, but you also want to be able to turn it on its side to get something a little bit wider. And even with a fine point line or a thicker line, you still want to have precision. And that's why the Shodo collection was designed. It was in order to kind of replicate those functions for makeup. So as you can see in the demos, I can really get precisely into the crease area without spreading out any shadows outside of the tip of the brush, which I think is really great, especially as, you know, my skin is aging and it's a little bit harder sometimes with skin that has lost some of its elasticity to maintain the same techniques that I used to be able to a few years ago. So, you know, you have that precise point. I think, you know, both the number 2 and the number 3 are really great in the crease using the tip and really keeping things in a precise location. But they're also really great used on their side for blending. And I know you've seen me use the Surratt Smoky Eye brushes, and they are developed kind of with this same type of idea. However, those are going to be squirrel hair, whereas these Rephr brushes are going to be goat hair. And that makes it a little different because the Rephr brushes are going to be able to be used with cream products as well, and creams and liquids and powders. With the goat hairs, they're also going to have a little bit more of a firmer structure than the squirrel hair. So you have a little bit more substance to this, whereas the squirrel hair in the Surratt brushes, those are really great for a soft diffuse look, but you really need to use powder products specifically with that. With the Rephr brushes, you actually, since those fibers are just a little bit more firm, you can actually move product a little bit more easily. So you can do this with not only creams and liquids, but also powders, and it takes a little bit less effort. Now the 00 shader, it works great as a shader, but it also works great to kind of get into that inner corner. You can go in very lightly to use more of those longer stippling fibers, and you can even use this in the crease as well. So I think all three of these brushes are pretty versatile. So let's take a second just to look at the Surratt Smoky Eye Brush with this. So this is the Eyeshadow number 3 from Rephr. So you can see that we have kind of this medium crease brush size, and then we go up to a fine tip. You can see how it still stays and keeps that precision as I'm twirling this. So if you were to go in the crease, you can really stay in a specific location. You can press a little bit harder to flare that out a little bit, but what makes this really great is being able to blend things out. So you can use a swirling twirling method, or you can just go there on the sides. But because we have those different hair lengths, you are able to get a very soft gradation of colors, and it helps if you want to blend things but you don't want to make things muddy. Sometimes when you're blending something over and over and over, it just all of a sudden becomes muddy. This will help with that process prior to that point. It's a little bit faster. So this is the Surratt Smoky Eye Brush in medium. This is one that I use a lot, but you can see how much softer this is compared to the firmness of the Rephr. So they really have slightly different purposes. The Smoky Eye Brush from Surratt, I really only use to blend the shadows this way, whereas the Rephr is going to be a bit more versatile. Now this is going to be the small Smoky Eye Brush, and you can see that the hairs are going to be longer than the Rephr 03, but the diameter is significantly smaller. And again, just like the other Surratt brush, you can see this is going to be significantly softer with less resilience of fiber structure. Now, real quickly, this is the Eyeshadow 02. You can see the length of the hairs, again, is going to be significantly shorter, but our diameter of the brushes is going to be pretty similar between the Surratt Smoky brush in the size small versus, or the petite, versus the Rephr. So here's the Rephr. Again, we can really get precision here. If we're going with this one, you can see we can get in a specific area, but because these hairs are so much softer, you're going to naturally get kind of that swirling motion there. And this one is also great for just kind of blending things very softly, and it works in a smaller area. And this is the Eyeshadow 00. So I'm not sure why they skipped one, but there really are only 3 brushes. And these do retail in a set of 3 for $39 US. And you can see we have shader style with those stippling fibers there. I don't have a brush quite like this, but I did want to show you this compared to the soft shader that I did use for the eye swatches here. You can see the soft shader has a wider base, and it's going to be a little bit shorter in hairs, and this is significantly firmer compared to this. So look at the Eyeshadow 0. You can see you could definitely go in the crease with this, but when you use this as a shader style, these longer stippling hairs help to kind of blend that out and soften the shadow while you're putting that on, and I think that's what makes this a great brush. Let's go ahead and move into just a few comparisons for the eyeshadows. I wanted to first start with this year's holiday backstage collection. So you can see that we do have kind of those pink and purple themes, but the Dior Couture line is going to be a bit more muted. So let me go ahead. I'm going to swatch this brown shade here. Let's put that one right there. You can see it's going to be a warmer brown. And then let's swatch these 3 here and see how they compare. you can see color-wise, they're going to be completely different. We definitely have more of those pink vibes still in the Dior, or in the backstage, but it's definitely going to be more of a brighter, cooler tone pink versus the Dior Couture palette Belle de Soir, which is going to be a bit more of a warmer pink. The silver is more of a silvery blue in comparison to more of a gray silver for the Belle de Soir. Soir de Bal. I keep saying it backwards. And then this here is the Plan de Prix palette in 983 Champs-Élysées. And I wanted to go ahead and take a look at these shades. We're going to skip the white one there, but here, let's go ahead and we're going to put them here. You can see this first shade here is going to be kind of the same idea where we have kind of that lighter transparent base. We have a little bit more pigmentation in the Soir de Bal. Then we have kind of this light pink, which did make me think of this one, but you can see the one in Plan de Prix is more of a smooth satin shade. It's not quite as powdery. And then we have this one here, which is going to be a little bit glittery here. And I love the way this looks. You can see it has a little bit more copper, but it's still a cooler tone pink. And then we have kind of this deeper shade. I'll just stick it here so we keep the palette together. But it's definitely more pink than that in the Soir de Bal. So that's the Plan de Prix. To say this shade unfortunately is a bit irritating on my eyes because of all the glitter, but it feels very smooth to the touch with your fingers. But yeah, I find this palette here, the Soir de Bal, to be less irritating. It's a little less glittery. Now, this is the old formula of the Dior shadows. This is 76922. And I want to go ahead, I wanted to start off with this shade here and see how that compared to the purple. But you can see this is going to be lighter. It's a little bit more purple, a little bit less gray. And then these other shades aren't really going to go. But let's take a look at the middle mauve shade there. Yep, no, it's definitely too much mauve compared to the brown, which they're calling a taupe. It's really not that much of a taupe though. And then this is the other, it's another shade there. That's kind of a lighter version. So that's the first shade. Let me swatch the brown here from Soir de Bal right next to it. You can see those, they still have a similar vibe, but the one in the original tutu is significantly lighter. And then this is one of the previous holiday palettes in 739, House of Dreams. So I'm just going to go ahead and swatch this whole palette right down here so we can see that. And here is the silver. And let me put this silver right next to the Soir de Bal one. Those are pretty darn close. Yeah, you know, I think this one is just a little bit more blue, but it's not really that noticeable of a difference. So as for the other shades in the palette, the brown comes the closest to the House of Dreams shades. I would say this one here, which is the one in the bottom right. So I hope these were helpful. So again, this is the Soir de Bal palette from Holiday. And then we have the Plan de Paris palettes, the Champs-Élysées, along with the shade, one of the shades, or two of the shades actually, from the old formula of Dior Tutu. And then we have shades from Dior Backstage Holiday. And these are House of Dreams from a previous holiday. So I hope that was helpful. Let's move on to luminizers. Now, the luminizers come in this beautiful packaging here. This is fabric, so I'm sure the fact that this is fabric is the reason that they didn't use this on the eyeshadow palettes, because I definitely would expect this to get dirty if you've got a little bit more powder dust. We have two different luminizers here, and I picked up both of them. So they do have a click closure. There is a little piece of plastic here on the mirror, which I have not been able to get off yet. It feels like it's like kind of, you know, placed in precisely. There we go. So I had to actually use tweezers to take that out. But this one here is number 1. This is Rephr Lumiere. And I have to say, I did think that these looked a little bit different online than they do in person. So this is Rephr Lumiere. And you can see that it's kind of a peachy gold. So this is the first one. Then the second one is Coraile Lumiere. And I mean, first of all, the packaging on these, the embossing, I think it's stunning. This looks pretty pink in the pan when you have the light hit it a certain way. But on the skin, it's definitely more of a, you know, it's called Coraile, it's coral, but it's just a little bit more of a coral gold, which, you know, I guess that's good for the holidays. But online, this one looked more pink than it actually is. So it's not really that pink. Now, we're going to take a look at the cheek swatches in just a minute, but I wanted to show you the fall brush from Rephr because look at this handle. It's stunning. And then this is our 3D cheek brush shape, which we'll talk about this in a couple minutes, but you know, I absolutely love this. Super soft. One of the great things about this style of brush is you can use this part here for like blush or bronzer, and then you can use a tip for like highlight, or even if you're trying to go a little bit more precisely in the hollows of the cheeks, over the brow bone and so forth. So it's just a really versatile shape. So I wanted to show this to you up close, and you're going to see me using this in the demos. So let's take a look at those. The luminizers have 6 grams of product. They're made in Italy and they have a 1-year shelf life. These are both going to be limited edition. So as we're looking at the cheek swatches, you can see we're using kind of the back end of the brush to go in with a light application. You can really get a very subtle glow using a softer, airier brush. Something like a fan brush would also work well. And that's going to give you a really subtle glow. I feel like the Lumiere is actually more evident on my skin tone than the Coraile Lumiere when you go in this way, because that coral peachy vibe of the Coraile Lumiere blends in with the skin tone just a little bit more. Whereas the Lumiere is going to be a bit warmer, so it stands out a little bit more on me. If you have a warmer skin tone, that might be the opposite. So I think that's something important to note depending on what you're looking for. Now, as we go in and we're looking at a more intensely applied highlighter, you can see you can definitely get a lot more radiance with this. We do have very fine micro shimmer in both of these highlighters. And when you really buff this in, it gets a very soft, not quite metallic, but more of a softer burnished metallic look on the cheek. And you can see that as we move in with something even more dense, the Rephr 04 brush. And I used that brush not because it's something I would typically use for highlighter, but just so you can really see how intense these colors can be made on the cheeks. With all of the cheek swatches, I do not have any blush on. Now for today's look, as you're looking at that demo, I used the Kosas blush in Dreamland, which is one of my favorite like everyday neutral blushes. And then I went in with the Coraile Lumiere in a lighter application. I think it blends beautifully and we have just enough radiance on the skin. So it's one of those highlighters where when the light hits it a certain way, you almost have a little bit of that candlelit glow. It's like that warm candlelit glow to the cheeks, and I think it's just really appealing for the holidays. Overall, the formulas for these luminizers are nice and smooth. They definitely have shimmer, but it's very finely milled, no gritty texture or anything. So I'd love to know what you think about the highlighters in the comments. I'd love to know which one you prefer. I think I actually prefer the Coraile Lumiere just a little bit more because I feel like that peachy vibe blends in with my skin tone a little bit more. So in certain lighting, it's a bit more subtle. And then when the light hits it just right, you have a little bit more impact. So I feel like that one suits me just a little bit more. Let's take a look at those applications just one more time. And this time let's focus on the fall brush from Rephr. So this is called the Koyo brush. And Koyo actually refers to the changing colors of the leaves in Japan. So it means autumn colors. The handle design here, you know, is showing us these beautiful maple leaves turning red and gold. And we have kind of this black to gold gradient on the handle as well. And this is a maki design. And I think it is absolutely stunning. We have a flat bottom here and the design continues on the bottom. We have gold on the bottom. It continues all the way around the brush. It is stunning. This is actually going to be a mix of SUQQU goat and squirrel hair. So it's very, very soft. And because of that, you do only want to use this with powder products. We have a single pressed ferrule here. So what that means is it's only pressed on the back side of the brush, and that gives it a little bit more structure on the back end, whereas the front end, you know, is going to be a little bit fluffier. So this gives us our 3D brush shape. And that last year we did see another 3D brush shape from Rephr, but it wasn't widely available. It was in the secret shop, and it was what they were calling the Holiday Bee brush. And that one was done with Saibika hair. And we'll take a look at that and how that compares. They're not going to be the exact same brush shape. They're both going to have this 3D general shape, but they are different brushes. So we'll take a look at that. Now, this brush also, you might smell a little cedar when you're using this brush because it does come in a cedar box. And I think that is a really nice touch. Definitely, if you have brushes that you're not going to be using for a while, definitely storing them in a box, particularly a cedar box, it really helps prevent like any little insects or things from finding their way and making a new home. It helps keep the integrity of the brushes. If you don't want to use it for that, definitely find something else to reuse that for. It's a great little brush, and I love having that cedar scent from there as well. As a matter of fact, you can actually buy like little cedar like charms and things like that to put in your brush containers to help prevent, you know, bugs and things like that from getting in there. Not that I've ever had a bug infestation, but you know, you never know. It's the whole idea of like moths in your clothing. Now, this brush would normally be pretty expensive, but it is going to be available for $99 for the holiday. Rephr is not really making a profit on this brush. This is their holiday gift to their audience. So just something to note there. I highly recommend this brush. I love this. This is one that I know I will be purchasing for gifts and things like that. I think it's such a beautiful brush, and I love the design and how it carried all the way around the brush. So let's go ahead, let's take a look at a couple of comparisons for the brush, and then we'll move on to some highlighter comparisons. So this is the fall brush. Again, take a look at that beautiful handle. You can see we go from black to gold, continues on the bottom. It says Rephr on one side, Japan on the other. And again, this is going to be the side, we've got the pressed ferrule here. This side is rounded, so that's going to keep this nice and fluffy over here, but gives it a little bit more structure here. Again, the hair lengths also kind of help there, but look at how this flows. So you can see it's going to give you a very soft application, and then we get a little bit more precision here. Now I have two brushes to compare this to. This is the Rephr Holiday brush or Holiday Bee brush from last year. So you can see we also have this 3D shape, but you can see that this is going to be different. So we actually have a slightly pressed ferrules on both sides. So it's not your single press. And you can see that the hair lengths are going to be different. And the holiday brush from last year was going to be a bit thicker. So you can see this is also very soft, and it's going to give you a soft application, but it's more firm than this one. If we had shorter hairs here, it would probably behave a little bit more like the Holiday Bee brush from last year, but because of these longer hairs here, we're getting an even softer application. The other one I wanted to take a look at is the CH1 from Bobo and Chikuhodo. And this is one of my favorite brushes. I use this quite a bit, but you can see here, again, we have the same general idea with the shape, but our dimensions are different. So we have an oval ferrule here, and you can see that our shape, again, we have that 3D shape, but this one is going to be a little bit more curved because it is going to be a little bit wider overall, and our hairs are going to be shorter. So this one is also going to be a little bit firmer in application compared to the Rephr. So it's all about personal preference, but I would highly recommend these new brushes from Rephr. I think they are great for yourself personally, and also for gifts. Definitely going on my shopping list for gifts. And I want to say thank you so much to Rephr for sending these to me. So they did gift me the brushes featured here today. Now let's take a quick look at the highlighters and a few comparisons. So this one here is the Koraile Lumiere. compared to the Coraile Lumiere. You can see in the pan, when the light hits it a certain way, they actually look very, very similar. So the first thing I wanted to take a look at is the Backstage palette. We're just going to look at this coral shade here because honestly, none of these others are going to match. So we'll put this one right here so you can kind of see the difference. Let me just go over that a little bit. But this coral shade is going to be pretty subtle, and it's a little bit more of a brighter base compared to either of these. Both of these are, they don't have as much brightness and translucency in the base. Now, the first thing that came to mind though, when I looked at these highlighters in person, were the oversized palettes from Chanel. So this is Or Rose that came out last year. And, you know, it's going to be deeper. It's more orange, but it does kind of align a little bit with the Or Lumiere. Let's put that one right there so you can see that. But you can see it's definitely more orange. And then this one was the Precious Coral from last year. And this one here, let's see how this compares. It's definitely more peach. We don't have the iridescence in either of these. I wouldn't say it goes. And then I wanted to take a look at a couple Tom Fords. So this is Peach Light. We'll just go ahead and swatch both of these here. I'm going to put Peach Light right here in between these two so you can kind of see. The lighter shade's going to be more pink. The deeper shade is Too Deep and a little bit more pink. And then this one here is Mood Light. And let's see how Mood Light compares. So Mood Light, let's put the lighter shade here, but you can see that's going to be a softer, lighter gold, and this is definitely going to be a bit more brown nude. So I don't really have shades exactly like these currently in my collection, but I do think that they are going to be nice highlighters. And as to whether you prefer the Or Lumiere or the Coraile Lumiere, I think a lot of it is going to depend on your skin tone and what you're looking for. So for me, since I have more pink in my skin, I feel like the Coraile Lumiere just looks a little bit more natural on me, and then you get more of those intense bursts. But if you have warmer coloring, the Or Lumiere might be a better match if that's what you are looking for in terms of appearance. So I hope that was helpful. We're now done with all the powder products and it's time to move into lipsticks. So let's start off with the Rouge Couture lipsticks first. You can see they do come in gold packaging to match the eyeshadow palette. We have silver on the top, and they do offer free engraving if you're spending over, what is it, 125 or 150 US dollars on the Dior website. Now, when I was purchasing everything, there were certain items that it would only let me to add to cart after I chose engraving. So if you do get engraving on these, this is where it goes. And so I just got my name Lexi, and it actually feels like it's just printed on this. But when we move into these, you can actually feel it etched in. So we'll take a look at that in a minute. But look at this. And in the lip swatches, I'll have a close-up of the embossing on here so you can see that again in a minute. There are 4 shades for these, and you can see we do have a little bit of shimmer in here. You can see it on the tip. This one here is number 994. Masquerade, and this is going to be a satin. Now, out of the 4 shades they have in these Rouge Couture lipsticks, they do have different finishes available, so it kind of depends what you are looking for. Interestingly enough, this is the shade Masquerade, and as I said, it's number 994, but we also have the shade Masquerade in one of the liquids, but it has a different number. So I thought that was interesting. You can see this is kind of like a burgundy with a touch of brown in it. And, you know, I would say it looked a little bit more like brownish purple on the website. There's definitely a bit more red in there. So we have a little bit of purple mixed in there with that brown, but we really have a lot more kind of like a burnished burgundy vibe to it. So I think this is a really nice formula. We'll look at the lip swatches all together in a minute, but let's move on to all the other products. So this is the new Dior Addict case. The case you purchase separately. So if you're just interested in the case, you can get this for any shade. And there are 2 new shades for the Addict lipsticks, and this is Fabric. I picked up the plum shade. So this is the Intense Plum. Sorry, Divine Plum. And they actually do have it printed right here on the bullet. And This is a really pretty soft plummy shade, more of a muted plum, muted purple. I think this is a really nice one there. Now, because you are purchasing the case separately, that means this does come with your standard black case. So this is how this one arrived. It was not available without this, and then you can purchase this separately. Last year, we saw some of the new Forever Liquid sequins. They were limited edition, they sold out immediately, and they were really hard to get. So this year, they brought back tons of them. So I picked up 6 of them, but it was so hard to choose. And I have to say, the pictures, very different online. So this one here, again, certain shades I could only get when I elected to do the engraving, which again was free because I was purchasing more than like $150 anyway, but it's actually etched in the plastic here. So compared to last year, we had a black top last year with the silver belt. Now we have a gold top with the silver belt, and then we have a frosted plastic. So we have number 100 here, which, here is 100. It's kind of more of a peach with a bit of nude. It's like a dusty peach. And there's a little bit of a warm pink hue to that. Now, what's great about these sequins is when you put that on, if you smear it while it's wet, you're going to get kind of this like soft metallic finish, a little bit of shimmer. This one here is 113. And then if you actually put it on, you leave it alone, let it dry, and then you rub your lips together, you get a ton of sparkle. So I did wait in between the lip swatches to show you some of that sparkle. But if you really want maximum sparkle, I recommend waiting like 5 minutes in between. So I will show you that one for the one that I have on. Next, we have number 353. And again, all of these shades are actually going to be warmer in person and very different. Like this second one here is actually going to be like a soft brown. It almost looks a little dead on my lips. This one here is going to be a bit different than any of the others that I picked up because you can see here that we really have more of a metallic finish with this. And this is actually, it reminds me a lot of the lip version of the first shade here in the eyeshadow palette because we have more of that transparent base and kind of that orangey pink with the pink shimmer. So these two are very, very similar to each other. So that was number 353. And then we move on to 703. And this one might be my favorite or the one I have on my lips. This is going to be more of your deep plum. We do have some brown in here. We have a little bit of pink, but we also have a lot more of like a dusty purple. So I think this is a beautiful shade there. The one I have on my lips right now is this one, 893. And if you're looking for a lot of sparkle with these, the deeper shades really emphasize the sparkle a bit more. You have more contrast. So this is going to be a deep berry, kind of more of a boysenberry kind of berry. So I really like this one. And again, this is the one that's on my lips right now. So I can't decide whether this is my favorite or 703. And then we have this one, which, I mean, it looks black here, but it's actually going to be a deep purple. If you layer this on though, it really looks almost black. And then you have more of like that purple shimmer in there. So I think it's interesting, but it's deeper than I was expecting it to be. Let's take a look at the lip swatches. Now, starting off with the lipstick, you can see the beautiful embossing on here. And this is going to be the same print that we see embedded on the actual shadows and the highlighters. So I think it's a really beautiful design on here. These lipsticks retail for $54 US. And again, there are 4 different shades, and we do have some different finishes available. The Masquerade lipstick has 3.5 grams of product, and it's made in France. As I mentioned during the arm swatches, this is really more of a burnished burgundy shade. We have a little touch of mauve in there, but it's really definitely much more burgundy. And I think it's a really beautiful shade. I think this is great for fall. It's great for holiday. It's really one that you can wear all year round. Now, as for the Dior Addict lip shades, we do have 2 new shades here. So the one that I picked up is 704 Divine Plum. I think it's a gorgeous shade. This retails for $46 US. The Dior Addict lipstick has 3.2 grams of product and it's made in France. And I really love it, but I do wish that we could buy those separately without the black case when we're purchasing the Addict Holiday case, because the Addict Holiday case is actually going to have to be purchased separately and it retails for $35 US. So it's a very pretty case, but it is fabric. So if you are worried about mess or staining, you might want to consider using some Scotch Guard or something on your fabric. And then moving on to the liquid sequin lipsticks. They actually have 10 different shades. They're all limited edition though. I'm kind of surprised that they brought out 10 limited edition shades, but they do retail for $49 US. The Rouge Dior Forever liquids in the sequin formula, those are going to be made in Italy. So the other lipsticks we saw were made in France. These are made in Italy and we have 6 milliliters of product. As I mentioned, we have 10 shades and these are considered ultra glittery and ultra pigmented with intense comfort. So if you want to emphasize the glitter in these, what you want to do is you put this on, let it dry for 5 minutes. Don't touch it, don't rub your lips together, nothing. And then after 5 minutes, you're going to press your lips together. I find if you rub them together a little bit, it does help. And then you end up with a ton of glitter. Now it's definitely going to be more obvious with the brighter, deeper shades compared to the lighter shades. These are considered transfer proof for 12 hours, as well as comfortable for 12 hours, according to Dior. Now, if you don't want as much of an intense glitter look, if you don't wait the 5 minutes, you definitely have much more subtle appearance of that glitter. So just something to note there. Now, these retail for $49 US. As I mentioned, they are all limited edition and they're supposed to have that bare lip feel, and they do. I would say that's pretty accurate. They are described as transfer proof, but I would say you still get a little bit of transfer. You know, it's not going to be anything major, but if I were to now drink out of a glass, I'll get a little bit of glitter on there and perhaps a tiny bit of the pigmentation as well, but not enough to leave your, traditional lipstick mark on a glass. So there is still going to be a little bit of transfer, but nothing major. They will last throughout the day and still look good. If you top these off with a clear lip balm or a gloss, you'll have this look. It'll be a little bit shinier, but it will basically decrease how well it works as being transfer proof. So you'll have a little bit more transfer if you add another product on top. Overall, I think the sequin shades are fantastic. Dior really made a great decision last year bringing them out. They realized they didn't have enough. So this year they brought out a ton, but I do hope that they make their photos a little bit more accurate next time, because I have to say I am a little disappointed in particularly the 113 shade, which really just does not work with my skin tone. So let's take a second and look at just the sequins from last year. So this one here is number 993. So this was the 903 from this year. So you can see they are definitely going to be different. And this is going to be a bit lighter. Let's go ahead and we'll put this right here. You can see it's going to be more purple. And this shade, I feel like this shade actually really emphasized the glitter pretty well, but my favorite was the red one. This is the 999. And this one I wear quite a bit for just like a night out. And I just think it's such a beautiful shade. So overall, these are the lipsticks. I think they are really beautiful. It's still actually a little wet there in spots, but you can see, you can get a little bit more shimmer. And I hope this was helpful. So we have the lipstick here in Masquerade. We have Divine Plum for the Addict lip shades. Then we have 100, 113. Then we have 353, 703. Then it's going to be number 893 and 903. So this one here is 903. So these are going to be our sequins. Overall, I'm really happy with the products that I picked up. I think the Dior holiday collection is beautiful. If you're looking to pick up one special item from this collection, my favorite items would be one of the sequins. And yeah, it's probably either going to be, for me personally, the 893 if you want something with more impact, if you want something a little bit more subtle, the 703 is my personal favorite. But I think, you know, it's a great product and it's fun. It gives you holiday, but it's definitely something you can use throughout the year to kind of spice things up a little bit. So that would be my number one pick if you just wanted to pick up one item from the collection. As for the Rephr brushes, I'm personally really happy with them. This fall brush, I love this fall brush. You know, this 3D cheek shape is in general my favorite shape. And then having this maki design on here, it is stunning. I absolutely love this, the colors, and there's just so much of it too. So I absolutely love that. And I think the Eyeshadow brushes are really unique, and I've really been enjoying using these. So actually they're brushes I've been using for a while. They had sent me some testers several months back, like actually a long time ago now. And so I've been using them for a while, just not on camera. And I really love them. They've become some go-to brushes for me. So I would definitely recommend taking a look at those brushes when they launch. So I'd love to know what your favorite items were from this collection, if you picked anything up from Dior, and what your thoughts are. So please share down below in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you very soon. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.